Eric, thank you so much for being here again on the podcast. Remind everybody who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm Eric O'Neill. I am an attorney, a cybersecurity expert, a keynote speaker, and also the author of two books, Gray Day and my new book, Spies, Lies, and Cybercrime. My claim to fame, my background is I was a former FBI undercover operative with a specialty in counterintelligence and counterterrorism. And my last case in the FBI was going undercover to catch arguably the most damaging spy in U.S. history, Robert Hanssen.
That's right. Made quite a name for yourself. Obviously, you wrote a book, movie about it, and all that sort of stuff. You have had quite the career. Obviously, cybercrime is something that you're, very knowledgeable about. And I wanted to ask you about your book, Spies, Lies, and Cybercrime. And you have this great quote very early on in the book that says, "There are no hackers, only spies." What do you mean by that?
That's right. And there are no hackers, the only spies. What I want my readers, my audiences, when I'm on stage, people to understand is that as espionage has changed, so has cybercrime. And we've got this misconception that there's some hacker, a lone wolf, sitting in a basement somewhere, dark hoodie over his head, typing away at a keyboard. And in every movie and TV show, he hits one key or she hits one key and says, what? Book, I'm in. Like it's magic, right?
Right.
Like Harry Potter just came across and did it himself, waving a wand. And that is not how cyber attacks happen, whether it's espionage or cybercrime. It is not a adversary using a computer to somehow magically attack your computer. What they are doing is going after the low-hanging fruit, which is you and me. And cyber criminals, not hackers, cyber criminals are using traditional espionage to do it. So they're using impersonation attacks, deep deceit attacks, social engineering, confidence schemes to come after you directly. So when I say there are no hackers, there are only spies, what I want my audiences, my readers to do is everyone to think is that the best of the best are coming after us, whether they're a criminal or a spy. And the only difference is the outcome. And all they care about is whether you are vulnerable, because they get paid if they scam you, if they compromise you, if they lock you with ransomware. If they fail, then they don't make a paycheck. So we want to elevate our thinking to always suggest to ourselves that we are defending against a spy. And if we do that, we're going to do all the work we need to do to protect ourselves.
Right. And you brought up a good point here. When I hear cybercrime, I think that's something that happens against like a business. But this is the type of stuff that would happen to you. It would happen to me, the average person, right? This is not something that we can just say, oh, this will never happen to me, right?
That is exactly true. In fact, the size of cybercrime right now, the fastest growing, largest business on earth right now, is so much that there is opportunity for all these cyber criminals. So it's not really a matter of whether you will get attacked by a cyber criminal, but when. It will happen. If you're vulnerable, it will happen. There are so many cyber criminals that it's just playing the odds. And what they're doing is they're learning about a lot about us. So they will actually target individuals by learning about them on social media. And I'll go back to the spy analogy, that is reconnaissance. That's what you do
Mhm.
in espionage. You learn as much as you can about your target. You find their weak points, the pressure points, what that you can do to them to make them feel so much pain that they want to pay you in order to get out from under it. And then they launch the perfect attack. Usually it's a scam. Usually it's social engineering. They will pretend they're someone you know. They will impersonate someone in a position of authority like the IRS. They will send you fake advertisements for the perfect gift that you have been searching through social media for around the holidays in order to scam you. They will steal your identity. They will use it and exploit it. They will lock you with ransomware. They will do everything they can to make your life completely miserable so that you pay them money.
Yeah, and it seems to be effective and it seems to be working on a very large scale. So, where does cybercrime actually start? Because it sounds like they're doing a whole lot of work before I ever received the first threat, whether that's an email, a text, or an attempt to try to take my information. Where does this really start?
That's right. So there are a lot of different kinds of cybercrime. There are attacks of opportunity. So cyber criminals will spend a lot of time creating these very clever attacks that go out in a broad spectrum. Here's a great example. Chinese cyber criminals, right, made over $1 billion last year on a text scam that we all received, right?
Hmm.
It was a text that came to your phone and it said, you have violated a toll booth and you owe money. Pay here conveniently, and we won't pursue added fines, which may lead up to you losing your license, right?
Yeah.
Scary.
Hmm.
And and so they're just throwing that out there. A lot of people paid enough that they made over $1 billion, right? That is an incredible scam of opportunity, a cybercrime of opportunity, where it's just thrown out there to the world. Now they were able to hijack different cell companies and mobile companies to launch these tech scams. So it landed on millions of people's phones. They created a lot of pressure. Sometimes they did it right. Like I'm in Maryland and I was receiving a text scam for the toll operator in Florida, right? So,
Hmm.
sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And that's an attack of opportunity. Then there are targeted attacks where, as I said earlier, they're learning about you. And usually what they're doing is going through your social media. So they might learn about you. And a lot of solo entrepreneurs get hit by this scam. You're running your own business, you're doing your own books, you're paying your own invoices. And what they'll do is learn about an event that you spoke at, or you worked at, or that you provided some service to, and then they'll impersonate that venue and send you an invoice, right?
Hmm.
And even put on the bottom of the invoice, there's not a link. It says here, pay, but give us a call if you have an issue. And when you call, they're very knowledgeable, and they say, "Yeah, I was here. You haven't paid us yet, but you need to pay us. Otherwise, there's going to be a 5% fee." And as you're trying to juggle all these balls, you pay the invoice. That's another example, and it just gets more extreme from there. Using AI to pretend that they've
Mm.
just kidnapped your daughter, and
Yeah.
now and you're talking to your daughter on the phone who says, "I've been kidnapped, I need money," and the next voice is this gruff angry person who says, "We're going to murder your daughter if you don't pay us," right? Immense pressure. And it goes on from there. Deepfakes, AI deepfakes, by the way, are really changing the game here and allowing
Hmm.
impersonation and confidence schemes to completely fool people into doing things that they otherwise never would have done.
Right. And it is just so convincing. Like I got the same text about the toll road about 3 weeks ago. I got a text supposedly from my state's Department of Motor Vehicles saying that I had a ticket and that I needed to pay.
I
And
got
it
that one
was,
too. Yeah.
yeah, I think everybody got that one as well. And apparently, it's this huge, large scale thing, larger than I thought, as you just explained. I've gotten the invoice from a supposed furniture company one county over that I had bought something from
Right.
them. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I'm like, hey, this was good. I have to sit back and admire it. But I also realize, like, you know, depending on my mood and depending on how I feel, if I have a headache or I'm tired, I might actually click on one of these links because they
Right.
just have to be convincing enough, right?
And the enemy, the adversary, is getting more clever. So they understand that the low hanging fruit are people who get the UPS email that says, "You've got a package that we couldn't deliver. Click here and we'll reschedule," right? That is so basic and has been around so long that most of us, our radars go up. So they innovate. And that's what a good business does. It's constantly innovating, it's constantly pushing the envelope, it's constantly trying to think of new ways to make money. And in cybercrime, what these businesses are doing, and what I call in my book, Spies, Lies, and cybercrime syndicates, right? Because
Hmm.
we're thinking like bigger than just a business, like a group of individuals whose entire reason for being is to steal your money. And what they're doing is they are pushing innovation. They're using new technology. They're leveraging a lot of AI to help them do what they do. And they're being clever. And they're looking at how regular people are touching the world. And more than ever before, we are using the internet to do everything we do. We get our groceries from the internet. If you don't go to the store anymore and get a pen, you have Amazon deliver it same day. We're ordering our food through the internet. And that that internet facing culture we've created allows cyber criminals to insert themselves in that chain of consumerism. And what they're doing is they're using the anonymity of the internet and the way that we transact business in our normal lives, and they're inserting themselves and using what we call imposter attacks to pretend that they are those services we're trying to use. And it is fooling people to the tune of trillions of dollars a year.
Right. And as you've been kind of alluding to, these are people who are sometimes these attacks are very personal, and other times there's this wide they're casting a very wide net just hoping to get as many people as they can. Are there some are there some tells that we can look for? Because the old advice was, oh, if it's written in poor English or if the link doesn't
Right.
look right, those are red flags. We don't have that in 2026 anymore.
We don't.
What are your thoughts on what we can do to try to see these things coming?
Well, I spend a lot of time in the book trying to teach my readers how to do this. And I do it through storytelling. So instead of just having a bullet point list that no one's going to remember and is completely boring, I put you in the center of stories of how these attacks happen and how you
Mhm.
could have seen it happen if you were the main character in those stories. So here are just a couple tips. One, scrutinize everything that comes to you online, especially if it's unsolicited. If
Mm,
you didn't ask for it to hit your email box, your text, your direct messages on social media, criminals are exploiting that because people don't think like, oh, that guy's going to come after me on my social media, or even
mm,
phone calls or video chats. Now they're using Zoom and Teams and different online, and they're using deep fakes that have complete fake avatars that are telling you things that you might believe. Anything that comes to you unsolicited, you want to put on your spy hunter hat and you want to spend extra time scrutinizing. That means that you're not quickly clicking through emails, that you're taking time through these different ways that people are accessing you on the internet. If there is pressure, right? They almost always use pressure.
mhm.
They're never like, "Hey, how's it going? You owe this invoice. Get around to pay for it later." It's always like, "You owe this money. If you don't pay, you're going to jail. You're going to get a fine. We're going to double it." It's always something that makes you think, "Oh God, I got to do this right now." They want to put you in a crisis situation where you feel like if you don't do what they want, what they're asking you to do, the pretext, the fake, the scam, then something else worse is going to happen. And usually it's pay or something else. So when you see that, really stop and think. If it comes to you on an account that you don't particularly use, right? Like I use what's called email segmentation. I have
Mhm,
main email accounts that I only use for my different work profiles. Then I
mhm.
have an account that I only use for family and friends. Then I have an account that I only use for registering stuff. And that's typically where all the crap comes, right?
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
that account is never going to be used for, for a vendor that I worked with or a friend or a family member. They don't even have it. So I can just delete straight through that and ignore everything. Um, Here are a couple other things. You want to look not just for the pressure behind it, but you want to question it and then delete that communication and go directly to the website or the vendor themselves. Uh,
Mhm,
an example. So let's use your invoice example, right?
mhm,
Instead of calling the number on the invoice or instead of clicking anything on the invoice, what you do is you save the invoice somewhere and then you go directly to the company.
mhm.
Call their number and say, "Hey, did you send me this invoice? I don't recognize it." And they'll say, "Who are you?" And give them your legitimate account number if you've worked with them. If you've never worked with them, then say, "Okay, I guess you didn't send anything, right?" And delete it. They will send you another invoice if they're legitimate. I don't know anyone out there, companies, the IRS, the government, anyone who isn't just going to send you another request. They're not going to throw you in jail because you didn't pay something that you've never seen before.
You would be proud of me. Yesterday, I received an email from a lab processing company that I had worked with in the past because they process like blood work for my doctor's office, that sort of thing.
Right.
But I got an invoice in email that I had never seen before. I was like, okay, this is different. I had recognized the name. This looks legitimate. They even went as far as to put a date of service on it. And I was like, okay. So I go to my calendar. I realize I haven't been there. However, my son had been to a doctor's appointment on that day. So I go through to the actual website of the place and I pay for it there using the invoice that was there. And sure
Right.
enough, there was a lot of information that confirmed this really was a legitimate thing. So I say that to tell everybody, you may not get a spam email or a scam email, but at least go through all of these
The
motions to
process
make
of
sure
checking.
that you get it right. Yeah.
That's right. And here's an example. Everyone knows I'm a public speaker, and you can see where I spoke. I
Hmm.
usually publicize it on social media, and so I started receiving these 1099 forms, these online 1099 forms from uh, companies that I spoke for, right? Which I shouldn't get, because
Hmm.
I get paid through a speakers bureau. It doesn't come directly to me, right? So
Fair
I would
enough.
never get a
Yeah.
1099. But I
Yeah.
was very curious. So I'm looking at it, and I got this 1099, and it was from a charity I spoke for where I didn't even take a fee. So they would never send me a 1099. And it's this online 1099 listing the venue. And so I called them. I'm like, "Are you sending me a 1099? Because you shouldn't be." And they're like, "We don't use that. We mail them. We put them in the mail. We're old school." So it was a very clever attack, which is just spending a little bit of time on
Hmm.
social media and saying, okay, Eric spoke here, and we're going to send him this electronic form, which is going to have the logo and the name. It's completely fake. And if I were to click on that, then it would either send me to a what's called a drop website, where you go to this website and it starts scanning your computer for vulnerabilities, and then it'll load an attack if it finds a vulnerability, or it's just requesting information, like, please verify your information, name, social security
Hmm.
number, whatever. And they've just stolen your info for identity theft. And even if you're savvy, just by going there, they know, where you came from, that you're real, that you're somebody who's going to, to take a nibble at the hook, and they will continue to attack you until finally they get you.
One of the things I appreciate that you were saying, in our conversation here, that you also share in your book is that this stuff happens to you. I mean, after all, you're a spy hunter. I would think that if I knew anything about you, I wouldn't even waste my time trying to hook you with something. But this kind of stuff has happened to you. And in your book, you share a really interesting story about booking a plane ticket to South Africa. Kind of
That's
walk us
right.
through what that was.
Sure. I thought long and hard about whether I wanted to tell that story in my book, because it's embarrassing, right? None of us really want to
Sure.
tell the stories about how we were the victims of cyber attacks. But I thought it was important, because even though I am who I am and I teach this and I stand up on stage, I am constantly subjected to cyber attacks, and each one more clever than the last. It turns out, if you write a book called Spies, Lies, and Cybercrime, all the spies and cyber criminals are going to try to compromise you so they can stick that feather in their hat, and they say, I got him. And if they do, everyone will know it, because it will be all over the dark web, right? At least the circles I run in. And so here's the story. This is incredibly clever, and it was very well orchestrated, and there were a number of people. It's a cybercrime gang, not just one person. I got it. I got an email, as it almost always starts. It was an email, and it was from the pastor of this mega church in South Africa, in Cape Town, South Africa, called Hillsong. And I looked up the church when I got the email from the pastor. It's massive, seats like 10,000 people, and I'm
Hmm.
thinking, what a stage! I'm looking at the stage, and now in my mind, I'm thinking like pictures and like marketing and how great it would be to be on that stage. I've never been to South Africa, to Cape Town, which is a little bit of foreshadowing here in the story, right? And I
Right.
really wanted to go. Uh, and so I read the email and the letter that was attached. It was a PDF. I scanned it, made sure it was clean. Opened the PDF. It was simply a letter from the pastor and the church inviting me to speak, saying that I had, an inspirational message that they thought would resonate with their congregation. There was the correct logo and everything on it, and it said the magic words: "We'd like to offer you your full speaker fee. We don't negotiate it. It's we have the funding
Hmm.
to do this, and a first class flight." And I'm thinking, not only am I getting my full speaker fee, I get to go to Cape Town, and I'm gonna go in a lay down pod, right, to in a long, long, long flight, right? How exciting will
Sure.
that be? And this was years
Yeah.
ago, and I'd never flown first class internationally at that point. And so I was incredibly excited, and that's what they want. They want you to be so excited that they can use a psychological tactic called confirmation bias.
Mhm.
Confirmation bias is when you want something to be true so much, you will continually confirm that it is true in your own mind, even though there's something in the back of your head saying, wait, stop, hold on, this is too good to be true. And you will confirm for yourself that it is true because you want it to be true. And I wanted it to be true. But I did my diligence. We were going back and forth on email. We wrote a contract and
Mhm.
signed it. This is before I had a speakers bureau. They we got together and we talked about the keynote. We settled on that. They sent me my hotel confirmation, and I said, I want to take this off email. Could you please call me right on your phone? And so he calls me on, and I look at the phone. It's a Cape Town number. I reversed looked it up, and so I'm talking to someone in Cape Town, and I talked to the pastor, I talked to the administrator for the church, I talked to one of the executive assistants, I talked to their finance person, and then finally I get a call from someone who identifies herself as a member of the congregation who volunteers there, but also is a member of the South African government, and
Mhm.
is there because the event is in 2 weeks, wants me to pay work with me on my visa and work permit. And I should also say, just before this, they said, buy your first class ticket. We'll wire you the money in the next few days. But we want to make sure you have the ticket because the event's right around the corner. We want to make sure you get a seat. And so I bought a first class ticket on United, non-refundable, for $10,000.
Mm.
Yeah. Yep. And which was supposed to be reimbursed. And then I get the call from this government person who says, we're going to get your work permit, your visa, and your repatriation fee. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's a repatriation fee? And she says, well, we don't want you to immigrate to South Africa. Just come and visit and work. And so it's money that you put into an escrow account, and you
Mhm.
get it back when you leave. And I'm thinking, okay,
Yeah.
something's really wrong here. And finally, right, finally, that inner spy hunter, I tell people you need to develop, right? That voice in your mind, that tickle in your stomach that I call the cop instinct that says, wait, stop, something's wrong, investigate, right? And so I did the simplest thing I could do. I called the South African embassy in US in DC. I'm in DC,
Right.
and I asked a simple question: do you require a work permit, a visa, or a repatriation fee? And he's like, no. I mean, you're American. You get your stamp when you come in. You don't have to have a work permit to come speak at a church. And I've never heard of a repatriation fee, and I knew it's a scam. Then I started
Mm.
doing research, and I realized that these criminals had scammed countless public speakers. It was their thing.
Mhm.
They learned about the public speaker. They learned all about them and their platform and what they spoke about. And they designed this incredible scheme around that. It's called an impersonation attack. But you take it one step further because it was weeks. That's a confidence scheme, right? The only difference between impersonation attack, that's quick impersonation, someone. Confidence is usually a bigger network of scam where you're impersonating a group of people, and this is what they did. Um, and I also learned that people had gotten so far down the road that they've given them thousands of dollars, some
Mm.
$10,000 before, in all of these junk fees, because they just keep layering them on,
Oh,
right?
sure.
And the
Yeah,
more
right.
you pay, the more you want it to be true, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because otherwise you feel like an idiot. You're out a lot of money, and you have to admit to yourself that you just got scammed, and no one wants to do that. So it actually
Right.
works for itself. Some people had showed up at Cape Town. I called the church, right?
Mm.
And it showed up, and we're like, I'm here to speak. And they're like, I'm sorry, you got scammed. A lot of people are getting scammed. Now, I did call United, and I got my ticket reamboursed by
Good.
telling them the
Good.
story, so I'm United for life. And so they refunded the $10,000. No harm, no foul. I have a particular set of skills, right? I mean, like you said earlier,
Right.
know who you're attacking. And they
Mhm.
all were calling me on their personal cell phones. So I was quickly
Oh.
able to, using my
Mm.
investigative techniques, learn all of their identities. And then, like I like to say, I did some things that I'm not going to talk about in
Sure.
public
Fair enough.
to each
Yep.
of them to make their lives completely miserable until they begged me to stop. And then I then I turned them over to the Cape Town police. which actually does prosecute for cyber crimes.
Wow.
So they won't. So
That's
the moral of the
yeah.
story is they won't prey on any more people. And it also gave me a great story to tell.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for including it in the book. And one of the things that I pick up on here is like when we get these DMV texts, it's usually they're trying to put that pressure on you, like you said, in a very negative way. But in your situation, it was in a very positive way. So it
Right.
can swing both ways using that confirmation bias. Really good explanation of that. So, any sort of like scam that we get, we need to know that if it's putting us into a mood, it could be positive or it could be negative, not always negative like we assume, right?
That's right. And it's a pressure situation either way. Look, if you have an opportunity that you feel you will lose if you don't move forward, that is a different kind of pressure, right?
Right.
An
Yeah.
amazing opportunity to make a lot of money, to fly across the world and go speak at a beautiful location. I mean, that's an opportunity that there's pressure if you lose it, right? If you wait, if you hesitate, if you don't buy that ticket, maybe the client goes away. And so as just as you said very astutely, that pressure can go either way. It can be negative, but it can also be very positive. All it all it's designed to do is make you want to believe something that's not true.
Right. Get you to that next step of motivation to doing what they want you to do. Exactly.
Exactly.
Walk us through real quick what your paid framework is. What does that mean?
The idea behind the book was to take what I learned at the FBI Academy, a career chasing spies and terrorists around Washington, D.C., especially like Russian spies, right? The science of counterintelligence, and teach my readers how to recognize every kind of cybercrime attack. You see it, you've read the stories landed, they're memorable. And so when it happens to you, you see that variation, right? That's counterintelligence, able to see the attack, hunt the threat before it hunts you, is what I like to say. And that's the beginning of the book, which is counterintelligence tactics to spot attacks through storytelling. The book reads like if you like true crime, you'll love it. If you like spy
Yeah.
thrillers, it's like that, right?
Yeah.
The second part of the book, also storytelling, flips it. So now we're active. We're not just recognizing we're being attacked, but we learn the techniques to fight back. And I came up with a cool acronym for the first part and the second. The first part's DICE, right? All of the
Hmm.
ways they're attacking us: deception, impersonation, infiltration, confidence schemes, exploitation, and destruction, right? All the spy tactics. And actually, it's written like a cyber criminal manual, like how you
Hmm.
attack, right? So you
Right.
can see it. The second part is how you turn the tables. It's called PAID: prepare, assess, investigate, and decide, right?
Hmm.
We prepare ahead of the attack. We are ready to fight before the attack happens. So we don't wait for that pressure situation to examine our cybersecurity, to look at how we're protecting ourselves. And these are the basic tools and tactics that you have to use. Now, they're different for a business, an enterprise, and an individual. And the book really covers the gambit, because the only difference in the tactics is scale. How much, right? How much you have to invest. For an individual, which is probably a lot of your audience, what you need to do is the basic hygiene things to protect yourself from these attacks. So a simple thing like email segmentation, which works so well. Don't use your work email for your play stuff. Don't use your play email for your work stuff. Keep things separate. It makes it so much easier to go through those emails and triage the good from the bad. Turn on two-factor authentication everywhere. It's the
Yeah.
most important thing you can do, and it's the thing that I find time and again. I have a cybersecurity company called NexusSure. We do vulnerability assessments of companies, and one of the first things we find in so many small businesses is IT turned off two-factor authentication because people complain. That
Yep.
is a death sentence.
Yeah.
You want to make sure in your individual life, for every account that matters to you, and that includes in particular your email, because it's like your second brain. Your social media, they will use your social media account if they can hijack it against all of your friends and family. And anything that matters to you, your financial accounts, your bank accounts. If your bank doesn't have two-factor authentication, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Now, what do I mean by that? It's you enter your username, your completely and utterly worthless password, because attackers can break those in seconds. And then you get the real security, which is that text that comes to your phone, or even better, the authenticator app that you open on your phone. Your phone's always with you. Don't give me any grief that it's too hard to do that next step. We all know
Right.
that our phones are never outside of our view. So it's easy to do that. And if you want to think of it as a game, how fast can I memorize the code and input it? Actually, your memory retention will get better if you do that instead of going, look and then line by line. So those are simple steps, and there's a lot more in the book, but you need to prepare ahead of the attack, not wait until everything is burning around you. Oh, maybe I should examine my cybersecurity. So you prepare. You've done this
Right.
extra work. But that's not enough. There's no like easy button for cybersecurity. It's not set in, you installed a virus scanner or a cybersecurity suite on your computer. Great, I'm done. No, you're not done. You have to assess. Assess is your radar. So your radar is always going. You're looking for the scam. You're scrutinizing the email. You're being what I call an email archaeologist, right? Dusting those bones, looking for the attack. You are triaging things and thinking, this doesn't look right. I'm just going to save this here and I'm going to call the company like you did and make sure that it's true. You're deleting things that just look fishy and scammy. And, if it's really important, they're going to come back, right?
Yes.
You're also being
Yeah.
incredibly careful on social media. You're not trusting people you don't know. This is very important for every adult to sit down and talk with your kids, especially your teenagers. Your middle schoolers shouldn't be on social media. They're not ready for it. But your
Right.
teenagers, you need to explain to them that the people you meet online are not your friends.
Hmm.
If you want to use their terminology, their parlance, you tell them the people you meet online are NPCs. They're non-player characters. They're not real people. They're, unless you have touched them some point in your life, you've met them, you've talked to them face to face, you can't treat them as your best friend, right? Um, because there are so many people who insert themselves in imposter attacks and scam, especially teens, because they know they're susceptible. So
Yeah.
your radar's up. You're looking for the scam. You're looking for that email from the pastor of the Hillsong Church asking you to speak, and you're questioning whether it's a scam. And when you feel that tickle in your stomach, that cop instinct, you move from assessment to investigation. So prepare, assess, investigate. You become the spy hunter that you're all born to be. What you do is you look into it. You do research. You can even, for example, had I just Googled Hillsong speaking scam, right?
Mm.
Just thrown that in Google, I would have found the message board of these poor speakers who were destroyed by this to the tunes of tens of thousands of dollars, and I would have immediately known it was a scam. But yeah, but I didn't. So when you feel even a question, you go out and you do your research. The easiest thing I could have done and saved myself a lot of grief, but not had the great story, is simply called Hillsong the moment I got the email. A
Mm.
couple
Hmm.
of bucks on a long distance call, I know, but called the church and said, "Hi, I'm Eric O'Neill. I just got an email from your pastor with a letter inviting me to speak. I'm just verifying." And they just said, "We don't know who you are." And I was said, "I'm a public speaker. Hey, would you like to have me come out and speak?" I'm still waiting to hear from them, by the way. I did call and have this conversation after the fact. But you're doing your work. Little things you can do to verify. What I say is, remember the old Reagan trust, but
Hmm.
verify, which
Yep.
actually comes from a old Soviet saying, which is a little bit ironic. Um,
Hmm.
don't trust, always verify. That's what we're doing today in our internet age. Trust nothing, verify everything. That's how you
Right.
have to go. So as an investigator, you're verifying. And if you find the scam, you decide to act. So prepare, assess, investigate, decide to act. Don't freeze. Don't turtle. Don't put your head in the sand. You have to decide to act, to take action. Insecurity, so many bad things happen to good people because they chose not to act, or in the moment they froze. It's not just cyber attacks. When you're walking down the street and that person approaches and you
Hmm.
feel a horrible sense of fear and you do nothing, that's where you get robbed, right?
Right.
Kick, fight, yell, scream, run, do something, right? Decide to act. It's the same thing with cybersecurity. If you just ignore it, if you think it can't happen to you, then you will be a victim. So prepare, assess, investigate, decide. That's the Cliff Notes version.
Right.
And the book goes in depth into each one of these with additional examples and looking at the stories from the earlier part of the book and how those individuals could have protected themselves if they had used the paid methodology.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I think that not only works for cybersecurity, that it probably works for some other areas of your life as well. But yeah, and I've been enjoying reading the book. One question before we get to my fun rapid fire questions for you. If
Sure.
someone does become a victim of a cybercrime, obviously, decide to take action, what do you think their first steps really need to be?
Right. And a lot of it depends on how you have become a victim. So if it's identity fraud, if you've lost your identity, if someone has your social security number, if they have all your information, you need to quickly change your passwords in different
Hmm.
places. You want to freeze your credit so that
Hmm.
they can't go and use your credit against you. They can't open a mortgage in your name, which actually people can do, open credit cards in your name, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Put alerts. I think that something that's very proactive in the prepare bucket, right, is to use some sort of identity theft monitoring. It's unfortunate. It's like the old virus scanners, the old everyone had to buy
Hmm.
it. Today, you have to invest in identity theft monitoring because it's your only early warning system that your identity is being used. Why? Because all of our stuff's out there. It's all been stolen, not from us, but by companies that we entrusted our information with. So
Right.
your doctor's
Right.
office might have been breached. The ice cream store that you put your username, email, and phone number in might have been breached. Law firms get breached. Big,
Hmm.
huge companies get breached. The government constantly loses data because these massive companies that they entrust the data with get breached, right? So it's often not you; it's somebody else that you've entrusted your information with, and they've lost it. And this is why usually identity monitoring is free.
Hmm.
If you are part of a breach, they will usually give you 2 years of this, and then before that ends, you've been breached. Someone else has gotten breached and lost your data, and you get another
Yeah.
2 years. So take advantage of that everywhere you see it. And if you don't, there are a number of very good companies that are not very expensive where you pay the monthly fee and they will tell you whether your information is shown up on the dark web or a credit card has been opened that you don't recognize. Now, what can you do free is go to Experian, TransUnion, go to the major credit
Hmm.
bureaus. There are three of them, and every year they must give you a free credit report.
Hmm.
So you sign in, they will give you the credit report, and it will show you everywhere that your credit has been used, your social security number, your credit cards, and anything where a line of credit's been opened in your name, and scrutinize it. And if you don't see it, if you see something that you don't recognize, then you need to take action quickly. On the other hand, if you've been the subject of, say, like a ransomware scam, where
Hmm.
suddenly all your systems are locked and you can't get into anything, then the action is you need to call in someone who can help you quickly,
Hmm.
who can help you go through the steps, because that's very difficult to do alone. And if your email has been stolen, or you get that horrible flood of emails from someone saying, are you asking for are you asking me to wire money? Are you on vacation? Are you lost? Are you in the hospital? Right? You know that your email account's been compromised, or your social media account has been compromised, and now an attacker is using it to scam all your friends and family. Um, and what you need to do quickly is get back control of that account, change the emails, make sure you have that two-factor authentication turned on, and then send that horrible message to everybody saying my account was hacked, and it's not me trying to get you to pay money.
And I will say, for two-factor authentication, I have been sitting on my couch and I've gotten a text from Instagram saying, "Hey, here's your two-factor, number." And I'm like, "Oh, you know
Right.
what? I'm not doing that right now. So let me go change my password and let me go change a
That's
few
right.
things right now." So it does work. All right. So
It
Eric,
works well.
yeah, I've got some fun rapid fire questions for you. I just want you just to kind of answer these just as you would here. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. So, what do you think is the biggest mistake that most people make when they fail to spot a scam?
Certainly, yeah. When they fail to spot a scam, what a lot of the biggest mistake people make is that they think it can't happen to them, right?
Mm,
So if you fail to spot a scam, you're going to get scammed because you didn't see it. And usually that means that you're not looking, you're not practicing good cybersecurity. You're not thinking like a spy hunter. So believe it can happen to you. Feel that little bit of pressure and a little bit of concern when you're on the internet, and always look for the scam.
Very good. All right. So, what is the most common way that kids and teens are being pulled into scams and cyber crimes?
A great question. And I spend 2 chapters in my book on exploitation about this through social media. Attackers
Mhm.
know that the kids are on social media before they're ready. They tend to trust blindly instead of realizing that everybody on social media is not the kind of person that you would normally be friends with, right? And some people are just out for friendship. So what criminals will do is they will actually look for those kids who are lonely, distressed, want to talk, need a friend, and they will be that person until they find a way to exploit your child. And it is devastating. In fact, with teenagers, in the last few years, it has led to over a dozen suicides out of this fear and embarrassment because they've been exploited
Yeah.
online through social media. So it's something that every parent has to take an immense amount of concern about. The number one thing you can do as a parent is tell your kid that no matter what happens, no judgment, they can come to you with anything, and you will help them solve the problem before the screaming starts. But to never just let it go, right? Never ever let it go, and they can always come to you. That could save your kid's life.
Yeah, that open communication is amazing for parents and kids. All right, so last rapid fire question here. So Eric, you have a lot of experience in cybercrime and scams. What is the big scam that keeps you up at night? What's the one you're worried about the most?
Well, it's not really a scam. What keeps me up at night is a critical infrastructure attack. And today, it should probably keep everyone up at night. We're in a war with Iran. We're constantly butting heads with Russia and China. And those countries know that the only way that they can actually hurt us is by denying us those things that are critical to living safe, happy, and healthy lives, like lights and power, like water coming when we turn the tap, or leaving when we flush the toilet, right? It's a terrible thing when that doesn't happen. And all of the different services that we rely on. So what worries me is addressing those. Now I know that you and I can't do a lot there, but we can prepare. Like I put solar panels on my roof. Yeah, but
Mhm.
have you thought of if you had to go a few days or a week without power because there was a critical infrastructure attack, and it's more likely than ever right now. Do you have like a stockpile of water and food and those sort of things that could get you through those couple days? Like some great board games to play with the kids to keep them from going nuts because their iPads won't work anymore. Those kind of things. Have you thought and prepared for even this kind of cyber attack, even though it's not directed at you, it's directed at the country? Are
Right.
you ready? And look, if Iran is ever going to pull the trigger on all this work they've done for the last 2 decades of probing our critical infrastructure, I mean, it's now or never, because that regime might be gone in another month or so. So I wake up in the morning and wonder, am I going to flip that light switch and anything happens?
Yeah, that's not comforting at all. Yeah, but I mean, and a very good point. It's now or never for them. Yeah, for real.
Now, the good news is it hasn't happened. And so we
Yes.
have to say,
Right.
why hasn't it happened? It's not because they don't want to.
Mhm.
It's likely because they are there's so much chaos there, and the FBI is pretty good at defending against these things. So I'm sure it's a lot of very good investigative work by our government agencies here, a lot of counter defense and counterattacks in cybersecurity, and also probably a good deal of luck. So if it
Mm.
hasn't
True.
happened yet, might not happen. But what I'm saying is we just need to prepare for things and not wait for them to happen to us.
Right. Very good. Eric, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really do appreciate it. Where can people find out more about you and where can they buy your book?
Certainly. So both at my website, which is www.ericoneal.net or com, they both go to the same place. You can buy my book wherever books are sold. If you go into your local bookstore and you ask for Spies, Lies, and Cybercrime by Eric O'Neill and they don't have it, tell them, could you please get this so that they stock it. But if you want to do the easy way, you can order it from Amazon or anywhere else books are sold. And if you go on my website and you'd like a signed copy, there's a link to get a signed copy from my local bookstore. And so you'll support them. And I might also note that every single week on Tuesday, I do a weekly award-winning newsletter, also called Spies, Lies, and Cybercrime. It's very light. It will never jam your inbox. It's only once a week. I'm a storyteller, so I start with a story, and then I do the cyber attack of the week, the cybersecurity tip of the week, the AI trend of the week, and kind of like, where has Eric been this last week? Usually like an interview or something cool like this podcast that I push to the newsletter. And it's a great community of people who want to protect themselves. If you reply to any one of the emails that I send when you subscribe, I reply directly to you. And it's a way that that we can continue to communicate and make the world safe from cyber attacks. And you can join that newsletter just by going to my email, to my web page, ericoneil.net, and clicking that top banner with the fun little fire emojis at the top that says "Start Here."
And I do subscribe to your newsletter. And a couple of weeks ago, you did one on your take of what was going on with Iran and everything. And
That's
I thought
right.
it was fantastic. And it was actually better than a lot of the news coverage that I was seeing because I was trying to discern what is real and what isn't. But I very much appreciated that one. And I do recommend that everybody go sign up for that newsletter. It's free and it's full of valuable information.
Yeah, thank you. It's all facts, no politics. I try to stay very neutral politically. And what I was looking at in Iran there, and thank you for the kudos to that newsletter, it is the espionage. Like, what's happening in espionage and cyber attacks around this, that things people aren't talking about. I just did one on robots. Like, a robot actually got arrested. Did you know that? Isn't that crazy?
Yep.
And a lot of it's very fun and topical, and things that really make you think and make you want to explore the world farther.
Yeah. Eric, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate how you're trying to educate people like myself and families to try to, live safer, happier lives, man. Appreciate you for it.
It's always great to be on the show, and I appreciate coming on and getting to spread a little bit of this knowledge to your audience, and hopefully tick that little doomsday clock away from massive cyber attacks toward being safe and happy online.